You know that feeling when you're trying to level up, right? Be more effective at work, maybe a better partner, parent,
Hmm.
and you look for answers, maybe in self-help, and it's just whoosh, a tidal wave of gurus' advice, often conflicting stuff.
Oh, absolutely. It can feel totally overwhelming. Sometimes the amount of information itself is the biggest barrier.
Yeah, exactly. That's really what we try to do here on the deep dive. Cut through all that noise, get to the core.
Get to the good stuff.
Precisely. And today we're tackling a real classic, a cornerstone in personal effectiveness. Stephen Covey's The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And we're working from materials you, our listener, actually shared with us.
Yeah, it's a book that's, well, it's been around for decades, hasn't it? Which
Yeah.
really says something about how solid its ideas are.
It really does. And our listener, like maybe many of you, wants that valuable knowledge, wants it efficiently, thoroughly, but without getting completely swamped.
Understandable.
So think of this as your express lane to understanding Covey's big ideas and, importantly, how they might actually work in your life.
We're aiming to pull out the real essence, the most valuable nuggets, so you walk away with a strong grasp of the 7 habits and the thinking behind them.
Okay, so maybe a little context on Covey himself, because he wasn't just some armchair philosopher.
No, definitely not. He was an educator, author, businessman. Co-founded Franklin Covey, had degrees from University of Utah, Harvard, BYU, solid background.
Right, and the book 7 Habits came out in 1989. That was a time when, personal development was really starting to gain traction in the business world.
Yeah, that context matters.
Yeah.
He wasn't pushing quick fixes or surface-level tricks. He was arguing for something deeper.
Exactly. So our mission today, let's unpack this framework. We've got the summary, chapter details, even some FAQs you sent over. The goal is you finish this deep dive really getting the 7 habits and why they've stuck around.
That's good. Where do we start?
Let's start at the foundation. Covey talked a lot about paradigms and principles. This is kind of the bedrock, right?
It really is. His whole point is that true effectiveness isn't about learning some technique. It starts much deeper. It starts with how you actually see the world.
He calls these paradigms, yeah, like mental maps we all carry around.
Exactly. There are perspectives, the lenses through which we interpret everything.
Yeah.
And these maps, well, they dictate how we understand things and ultimately how we act.
And he draws a really key distinction here between what he calls the personality ethic and the character ethic.
Yeah, that's crucial. The personality ethic is, focused on the outside, your image, public perception, maybe using certain social techniques to get ahead.
Like focusing on being charming or networking skills?
Right?
The surface stuff?
Right. But the character ethic, that's internal. It's built on fundamental principles. Things like integrity, humility, courage, fairness,
Enduring value.
enduring values. And Covey argues really strongly that lasting success, genuine effectiveness, comes from building that character ethic.
So it's less fake it till you make it and more build it from the inside out, which I guess leads directly to his inside out approach.
It does, yeah. That's the core idea. You work on yourself first. Your character, your integrity, your motives, that's the foundation. Then you can build effective relationships and achieve external success. Private victory precedes public victory.
Okay, build the inner core first. Got it. So how do we actually start doing that? That takes us into the first few habits, the private victory, moving from dependence to independence.
Exactly. Habits 1, 2, and 3 are all about self-mastery. You need these before you can really succeed with others.
All right, habit 1, be proactive. Seems simple, but there's more to it.
Oh, definitely. It's not just about taking initiative, though that's part of it. For Covey, being proactive fundamentally means taking responsibility for your own life and your reactions.
Meaning not blaming circumstances or other people for how you feel or act.
Precisely. He talks about that critical space between stimulus, something happens, and response, how you react. Proactive people recognize that space and use it to choose their response based on their values, not just on impulse or conditions.
So finding that pause button between event and reaction, that's where freedom lies.
That's the idea. And he brings in the concept of the circle of influence versus the circle of concern.
Right. Circle of concern is everything we worry about. Global politics, the weather, what people think.
Stuff you can't really control. Whereas the circle of influence is the stuff you can do something about, your attitude, your choices, your work habits.
And proactive people focus their energy there in their circle of influence.
Exactly, where they can actually make a difference. Reactive people tend to get bogged down worrying about the circle of concern, which often just shrinks their influence over time.
Makes sense. And he mentions language too, right? Proactive language.
Yeah, simple shifts like saying I choose to instead of I have to or I can instead of if only. It reflects ownership. Might seem small, but it reinforces that proactive mindset.
Okay, taking ownership. Got it. What's habit 2? Where do we go from being proactive?
Habit 2 is begin with the end in mind. This is about clarity of direction. It's knowing where you're going before you start the journey.
Like setting the destination on your GPS before you pull out of the driveway.
Exactly like that. It means having a clear vision of your desired outcome, whether it's for a specific project or, for your life overall. You define what success looks like first.
So you're not just reacting day to day, but actually moving towards something specific.
Right. You're living life by design, not by default. Covey strongly recommends creating a personal mission statement.
A mission statement, like for a company.
Sort of, but for yourself. It's a written articulation of your core values, what you stand for, and what you want to achieve in the long run. It acts as a personal constitution, a guide for your decisions.
That sounds pretty deep. Does it help keep you focused?
Absolutely. It helps ensure your daily actions are aligned with your ultimate goals. It prevents you from getting caught up in, urgent but unimportant things and losing sight of what truly matters to you.
He has that famous exercise too, doesn't he? The funeral one.
Ah, yes. Imagine your own funeral. What would you want people, family, friends, colleagues to say about you? What kind of person do you want to have been? What impact do you want to have made?
Wow. That's sobering. But I can see how incredibly clarifying that would be. Forces you to think about your real priorities.
It's a powerful way to connect with your deepest values and to find that end you want to begin with.
Okay, so we've taken responsibility, habit 1. We've got a clear destination, habit 2. How do we actually manage the journey day to day? That must be habit 3.
You got it. Habit 3. Put first things first. This is where the rubber meets the road in terms of execution and time management.
This is about prioritization.
Yes, but specifically prioritizing based on importance, not just urgency. This is where Covey introduces his famous time management matrix.
Ah, the 4 quadrants. I remember seeing that. Urgent important, not urgent important.
Exactly. Quadrant 1 is urgent and important crises, deadlines. Quadrant 2 is not urgent, but important planning, relationship building, prevention, exercise, learning. Quadrant 3 is urgent but not important, many interruptions, some meetings, popular activities. And quadrant 4 is not urgent and not important time wasters, trivia.
And the key is quadrant 2, right? The important but not urgent stuff.
Absolutely. Covey argues that highly effective people minimize time in third and 4 and spend most of their time and energy in quadrant 2. These are the activities that build long-term capacity, prevent crises, and lead to significant results.
But they're often the easiest things to put off, aren't they? Because they aren't screaming for attention right now.
They are. The urgent constantly tries to crowd out the important. So habit 3 is about the discipline to focus on quadrant 2, even when quadrant 3 and 3 are making noise. It requires planning and, importantly, learning to say no.
Saying no to the unimportant stuff, even if it feels urgent or comes from other people.
Right. Saying no gracefully but firmly to things that don't align with your end in mind and your priorities. It also involves effective delegation and trusting tasks to others where appropriate so you can focus on your highest leverage activities.
Okay, so that private victory habits 1, 2, and 3 is really about building self-mastery. Taking charge, knowing your direction, and acting effectively on priorities. That feels like a solid personal foundation.
It is. And only after achieving that level of independence and self-management can you effectively move into the realm of interdependence, working successfully with others.
Which brings us to the public victory, habits 4, 5, and 6.
Exactly. Moving from I to we.
And the first step in that is habit 4, think win-win. This sounds nice, but what does it really mean in practice? It's not just compromising, is it?
No, it's much more than just compromise, though that might sometimes be part of a solution. Win-win is a mindset, a philosophy, really. It's about constantly seeking mutual benefit in all human interactions.
So you're looking for solutions where everyone feels good about the outcome, like they've gained something?
Yes. You genuinely want the other party to win, too. It's based on the idea that success isn't a zero-sum game. There's enough for everyone.
Covey calls that the abundance mentality, doesn't he? As opposed to a scarcity mindset where if you win, I must lose. Or vice versa.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And win-win isn't one of several options. Covey presents it as the only truly viable long-term approach in interdependent relationships. He outlines other paradigms like win-lose, win-lose, lose.
Win-lose is the competitive approach, right? I win, you lose.
Yeah. Lose-win is being the martyr, letting others win at your expense. Lose-lose is when conflict drags everyone down, and then there's just win, focusing only on your own goals regardless of others.
And Covey adds, win-win or no deal. What's that?
That's crucial. It means if you can't find a solution that benefits both parties, you agree to disagree agreeably, no deal. You don't push for a win-lose or settle for a lose-win just to make a deal happen. Preserving the relationship is often more important.
So it requires integrity, maturity, that abundance mentality you mentioned.
And trust. You build trust through what Covey calls the emotional bank account, making deposits through kindness, honesty, keeping commitments. So you have goodwill to draw on when things get tough.
Okay, aiming for win-win. But how do we actually get there in a conversation or negotiation? That seems to lead right into habit 5.
It does. Habit 5. Seek first to understand, then to be understood. This is the habit of effective communication.
And it sounds so simple, but is it really?
It sounds simple, but it's probably one of the hardest habits for most people to practice consistently. We're often so focused on getting our own point across, on being understood, that we don't truly listen to the other person.
We listen to reply, not to understand.
Exactly that. Covey stresses empathetic listening. That means listening with the intent to really understand the other person's frame of reference, their feelings, their perspective. Not just hearing the words, but grasping the meaning and emotion behind them.
He uses that analogy right. Diagnose before you prescribe.
Yes. You wouldn't trust a doctor who prescribed medication without diagnosing your problem first. Similarly, how can you offer solutions or expect someone to listen to your viewpoint if you haven't first deeply understood theirs?
Makes sense. So how do you do that? How do you listen empathetically?
It involves more than just being silent. It's paying attention, reflecting back their feelings. So you feel frustrated about rephrasing their content. Okay, so if I understand correctly, you're saying. It shows you're genuinely trying to see the world through their eyes.
It builds trust and makes the other person feel heard and valued, which probably makes them much more open to hearing your perspective afterward.
Absolutely. Once someone feels truly understood, they become far more receptive to your ideas and finding that win-win solution.
Okay, so we're aiming for win-win, habit 4. We're practicing deep listening to get there, habit 5. What's the ultimate potential when we combine these with others? That must be habit 6.
Habit 6. Synergize.
Yeah.
This is where the magic really happens in teamwork and collaboration.
Synergy. Like the whole is greater than the sum of its parts.
Exactly. Synergy is about creative cooperation. It's about valuing differences in perspective, experience, opinion. Instead of seeing differences as a source of conflict, you see them as an opportunity.
How so?
Because when you genuinely combine the insights and strengths of diverse individuals who trust each other and communicate openly, using habits 4 and 5, you can often come up with solutions that are far better than anything any single person could have devised alone.
So it's not just compromise where 1 + 1 = 1.5. It's creativity where 1 + 1 might equal 3 or 10 or 100.
Right. It's about leveraging those different perspectives to create new possibilities, innovative breakthroughs. It requires high trust and the skills developed in the previous habits, but the results can be extraordinary.
Okay, so that public victory, triad, win-win, seek first to understand, synergize, it's all about building truly effective, interdependent relationships. Wow, that's quite a journey from just managing yourself.
It is. It's a progression.
But how do we keep all this going? It sounds like it requires constant effort and energy. How do you sustain it?
That brings us to the final and perhaps encompassing habit. Habit 7. Sharpen the saw.
I like that metaphor, like a woodcutter needing to stop and sharpen their saw to remain effective.
Precisely. Habit 7 is the habit of self-renewal, of continuous improvement. It's about regularly investing in yourself to maintain and enhance your greatest asset, which is you.
And Covey breaks this down into 4 areas.
Yes, 4 dimensions of renewal. First, the physical, exercise, nutrition, stress management, taking care of your body.
Makes sense. Second,
Second, the mental, reading, learning, planning, writing, visualizing, keeping your mind sharp, engaged, and growing.
okay. Third,
Third, the social emotional. This ties back to the public victory habits. Building relationships, practicing empathy, seeking synergy, having that internal security, nurturing your connections and emotional well-being.
and the 4th dimension.
Fourth is the spiritual dimension. And it's important to note, for Covey, this isn't necessarily religious, though it can be. It's about connecting with your core values, your center, your commitment to your value system. It could involve meditation, spending time in nature, prayer, reading inspiring literature, whatever helps clarify your purpose and values.
So it's a holistic approach, taking care of body, mind, heart, and spirit.
Exactly. Regularly investing time in all four dimensions is crucial for long-term effectiveness and preventing burnout. If you neglect sharpening the saw, your capacity diminishes over time no matter how hard you work.
It's the principle of production capability. You need to maintain the asset to keep producing.
Perfectly put. It's about balance and continuous growth across all areas of life.
So let's try and wrap this up. The Seven Habits really offers this integrated approach, doesn't it? It's principle-centered, character-based. It guides you from self-mastery, being proactive, having a clear end in mind, prioritizing effectively,
That's the private victory.
to effective collaboration thinking, win-win, understanding first, then synergizing.
The public victory.
And it's all sustained by continuous self-renewal, sharpening the saw.
And the key takeaway, I think, is that these aren't just tips or tricks. They're habits, deeply ingrained patterns aligned with what Covey believed were universal principles of effectiveness. It's a long-term commitment to growth.
Yeah, definitely not a quick fix. And for you, our listener, wanting that efficient grasp, hopefully this deep dive gave you that structured understanding of the framework, the flow from one habit to the next, without feeling too overwhelming.
We hope so. Focusing on these core ideas and how they build on each other gives you a really solid foundation for thinking about your own effectiveness.
So maybe a final thought for everyone listening. As you reflect on these seven habits, is there one that particularly jumps out at you right now? Maybe one that speaks to a challenge you're facing or an aspiration you hold?
It's a great question to ponder.
And if there is, what's just one small, tiny step you could realistically take, maybe even today, to start integrating that specific habit a bit more intentionally into your life?
Yeah, just one small step. It's worth thinking about how consciously adopting even one of these principles could really start to shift things for you personally and professionally.
Food for thought. It really shows how powerful these ideas can be when you start to apply them.